and it's a Sunday, and it's every other Sunday, which we're starting again, and it's the Worldwide Story Round, hosted by Mike Russ from Get a Word in Edgeways. Welcome, everybody. And so I'm going to hand over to you, Mike.
Well, welcome.
Then you can hand it back to me to read a poem if you want.
And I'll hand it back to you to read the poem. Yeah. So we're about 2 or 3 weeks away from our festival. Our festival is the 11th, 12th, 13th of October. We look to have a fantastic festival, but I would say that I'm the director of it. So that's not a problem at all. We've got new commissions, and we've got storytelling, and we've got poetry, and we've got workshops, and we've got all sorts of stuff. So I'm looking forward to that. Spooky stories in the churchyard. That's how we're kicking off, is one of the things we're doing. So if you happen to be within striking distance, I don't know where you live, Samantha. Where do you live?
In Norwich.
Norwich. Well, it's only a 6-hour drive. You'd be fine to come over.
Yeah, I know. I've done it from Norwich to your end, and far too often.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, you'd be very welcome to come anyway. Anyway, so
Hi, Sam. How you doing?
The drive would be too long from where I am.
Yeah, I will give you off. If you live in Washington, D.C., I will. But we are expecting you to come to Marrakesh.
Oh, yes. I'm coming to Marrakesh.
So I'm going to try and hop on an airplane this time and come over as well. So I haven't been able to go to the first couple for various personal reasons, but I'm looking, all things being equal, I should be there this year. So I don't know if John's invited me out. I'm just going anyway.
Well, yeah. I think I think you're invited. I just haven't sent the invitation yet to you, Mike. And
Yes,
anyone who wants a proper invitation rather than just turning up, just message me and we'll make sure I've got their email address, and I'll send an invitation. I mean, anyone who wants to, anyone who's coming to perform. Right.
Well, absolutely. So hello, Rona. It's nice to see you. So just before we put John on, Samantha, would you like to tell a story or do a poem in a minute or so while we're all here, or are you just a listener?
I've got some poems if you want a poem.
I would love a poem. Absolutely. No, you're not going to say that twice and get away with it. So we're going to go to John first, then we're going to go to Keith, and then we'll go to you, and then Baba, me, and Rona sort out what we're doing for the rest of the evening.
Okay, I mean, at the moment, I'm only 40 miles down the road from Sam. I'm in Ipswich. I'm on the other side of the Waveney, and so. But there's this poem I wrote ages ago, and I've probably done it before, but not for years. So, I was just I was asked to write this poem for the opening of an art exhibition, and all the clues I was given. She was a Chinese artist, and all the paintings were about East Anglia, and it was elemental. So so this is the poem. I need a poet, she said, like you can just pluck stars from the sky and mix monsoons with cherry blossoms. Drowning in rainwater and petals, I grasp a beam of light and swing towards the moon. Accidental clashes of the imagination with big skies and sunrise. No surprise in this place where tidal water meets freshwater feeling at the edge of the hedge, east side, west side, it's a divide, defined by concrete rings and things manufactured. What we need is John Clare's stare without the instability of incarceration, the ability to wing it through the changes. Wind and rain rearranges the border, disorder at high tide. The county is getting smaller by the year. Here, there is the illusion of permanence. Grounded by the plough, takeoff is harder than ever. Now airfields no longer mix. Propellers and plovers, lubbers, and a lay for today keeps the homesickness at bay, some say, but the sky defies definition. The sea's on a mission, and the ground doesn't even ask permission before it splits. This is it. Elemental and blue as green as yellow as, purple haze on the highway, desert burns on the skin, bats in the belfry, the turmoil within. As a youth, I watched the ships dock and sail morning and night, got seduced by the light's reflections on the far side of the river, while my side snaked through the country to Wormingford and beyond. Disturbed only by boy entrants and fishermen, I searched the shingle for clues, sat in the wall where the road ended and tidal waters flowed to the sea, and talked for hours to girls I wanted to explore the world with. Travelling north, I lay on a mountainside and bathed in the midnight sun. Travelling south, I freewheeled down the mini Atlas in an Austin A35 and wondered at the eagles circling below us. Travelling to the edge of sanity as I knew it, I was taunted by the red-hot Earth's centre as I walked on fresh-set lava flows. Now I travel with a new generation and look up at fault lines dividing hill country tavern from flatlands in Texas caverns. Earth and water, air and fire, so many carbon combinations. Color me liquid and paint me into the cracks of the planet. Color me solid and fashion me into a stepping stone to tomorrow. But color me gas and burn me in a lamp of my own making. I'm there for the taking and always have been. The peninsula knew that way back when it kept me a river's width from my dreams.
Thank you very much, John.
Well, that was very East Anglian one, so Sam would recognise a lot of the references.
That was absolutely amazing, John. Freewheeling in an Austin A35 elevator.
Look, can we stop showing our age? And to our American cousins and people, they won't know what an Austin 35 is. But just to say, nowadays, you are lots of places you can find them. They're called museums.
Of course, I don't know. I've just heard about them.
You won't find them on garages, and you won't find them on the road. You will find plenty of them in museums. Yes, John. Okay.
Right, and I must apologise. I've got to go off and do something. But if I can just say, what's coming up on Friday is Dispenner is our storyteller for Friday. So, and I'll listen to the rest of it on catch up. My apologies. I've got to read and run, as Ted Jones used to say.
Yeah.
Great to see you.
Yeah. It's always a pleasure to be in your company, John, and take care wherever you're going, and don't do anything I wouldn't.
Mike said.
No, I'm filming.
Right. Okay. So we're going to go to Lincolnshire. Yes. I just remind everybody that when people are telling, can we please mute ourselves? So we're going to go to the wilds of Lincolnshire. But as I always say, Keith, someone says, where do you live, Mike? And they say, well, nowhere really. Well, it isn't nowhere. It's because I live there. So if it can't be nowhere in Lincolnshire where you live, because my friend Keith lives there, that means it's somewhere. So wherever it is. So we're going to go to Keith in Lincolnshire. Okay, and afterwards we'll go to Samantha. Okay.
Okay, right. All around the Lincolnshire Wolds, they've just about finished harvesting. There's been lots of wheat and barley and oats been harvested, and they're baling now around the fields around where I live. So this is a story that is relevant to the time of year. A long time ago, in a land far away, there lived a storyteller whose father was a carpenter who lived in Nazareth. Now all the people were gathered round, and the storyteller told them a story about a farmer. He said that the farmer went out one day broadcasting seed over the field. Now those days it was open field, open, there's no hedges and fences, it was open land. And also they would break up the soil, maybe with a rough plough, so that the seed would fall down in the cracks in the soil. And so the storyteller told the story where the farmer was going out and broadcasting the seed, and some seed fell upon the path that ran through the fields. And he said that the grain was just gobbled up by birds or were trampled underfoot. And the storyteller says then that some seed fell upon rocky ground where there's no depths of soil, no moisture. And when the sun came out and it was very hot, and all the seeds, although germinated, but they soon shriveled up and died. Then the storyteller said then there was some seed that fell upon weeds and thistles and thorns. The seed germinated, but was soon choked by the weeds. But then the storyteller said that some seed fell upon good ground and produced lots and lots of more seeds, and there was a great crop. And he said then of a loud voice, if you've got ears, then pay attention. Now, his friends said to him, so well, why do you tell stories to all these people? What's the meaning of it all? And the storyteller says, well, the secrets of the kingdom of God are given to you. But for these people, they just loved stories. And then he told the meaning of the story. He said the seed was the message of the kingdom of God, that people can be rescued and enjoy eternal life. And the seed that falls upon the path is when people just are there and suddenly they just don't grow, they don't develop, they don't accept the message, and the devil whisks them away and they're lost. And the seed, which is the message of the kingdom of God that falls upon rocky ground, are people that they hear the word and they respond to the word, but then when the going gets tough, they fall away and do not continue. That's what's happening to lots of Christians and followers of the way today, where the going's getting tough because they're not acceptable. And then the storyteller says, well, the seed that fell in thistles and thorns are people who hear the word and they accept the word and they go on with the word, but then the cares of this world of wanting fame and wanting riches just stifles their growth. They do not continue. But the seed that falls upon good ground are people that hear the word and they grow and develop. And they share that message of the kingdom. And so there's lots and lots of other people that share the kingdom. And there's a great growth, they've got 100-fold of what was sown. And so that's the story, as I've told it, of the farmer who went out to sow some seed. But you probably know it as the parable of the sower told by Jesus.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you. It was very kind of you. So, Samantha, I very rarely do this. This is your first time, but I'm going to tell a story now. Then would you please tell a story after me? I don't normally jump in like this, but I want to follow that for Keith's story for this reason.
No problem.
There once was a king, and he'd been king for many, many years, and he had a wife, but she wasn't a wife like they were in the old days. This was an equal partner. This was someone he relied on, who was, when there was troubles in the world, he could talk to and he could listen to, and he was a partner, an equal partner in his life. But as they grew older, she fell ill, and one day she went to bed one more evening, and in the morning she woke up dead, as they said in the old stories. And all things had to happen. And as somebody said to me on this program about a couple of years ago, his name was Baba. He said, it's an old African saying, which I've used since. She passed from being with us to being an ancestor. Well, the grief came straight into his heart. And the grief came so badly that it froze his body. And it froze his mind, and it froze all his emotions, and it froze everything. And he just sat on the throne, and he just could not move, and he could not think, and he could not do anything. And in the end, they just gave him a little bit of hot soup every evening. But the kingdom was coming to rack and ruin. There was no one in charge of the seasons. There was no one in charge of the kingdom and the seasons. Well, they're going into the winter, okay, but when it came for the time for the winter to soften into the spring, there was no spring coming. And the nights weren't getting longer. And the weather was staying just as cold, and the frost was all over the grounds and everything else. And the farmers went out every day and looked, but they couldn't plough the soils and till the ground. And the kids, they could go to school, but they were still all cold in the school. And everything was just frozen, as if time had stopped itself. And one day, his daughter, she turned around and she looked at the throne, and she went to the wise men and said, there must be something in the wise books that I can say to my father that will stop all this, and he can come back, and the spring will come and life can go on. Because my mother died, his wife, the whole world cannot stop, as much as the grief is great amongst us. And the wise men, they looked through all their books, and they went to their other religions, and they looked through all the books of every religion they could find. And they couldn't find the words they thought they would do it. And in the end, she shouted at them. She said, there must be somebody who will know the words that I can use on my father that will mean that this will come back, and the spring will come, and the babies will come. For the babies are in the wombs, and they're not moving either. And in the end, they sat down. They said, there's one chance, just on the very edge of this kingdom, up in the cave, far away up in the mountains, there's a hermit, and he lives there by himself. But before he became a hermit, he was a storyteller. And he collected all the stories from all over. And he's a little old man, and he likes being alone anymore. But if you go and ask him to come down here, and he wouldn't. But if you went up there and asked him, he might know something we don't know. So she did. She got on a little white pony, and off she trotted, and she went up into the mountains, and she found the hermit, the storyteller, and he was there, and he was looking southwards, and he looked, and all he could see was ice instead of the spring coming. And she told him what had happened, and he nodded, and he said, you have to do this. Go and get a ring, a golden ring, and bring it to me, and I will write the words on it. And I know how to solve this problem. And then you take the ring, and you put the ring on the left hand on the wedding ring of your father, the king. And I think that will do it. So she went and got a gold ring, and he came back. He sat there, and in an hour he wrote 4 words. And he said, take this back. And she went all the way back, and she sat down, and she looked up at her father. And her father looked down, and in the face of his daughter, he could see the mother that was there. And he looked round, and she picked up the ring, and she put the ring on the finger. And she put the ring on the finger. A shaft of light came. But it was the shaft of light, it wasn't from the sun, it was from the moon. But it reflected the sun, and it made a crack. And as the crack opened, the sun came through. And in the distance, they could see the sun getting higher. And they all knew, as the buds came onto the trees, as late as the spring was coming. And the father looked at the daughter, and he could see his wife, her mother, and his daughter, and she sat there with him. And for the next period of that kingdom, they were all together with kindness. And they tried to help everybody. And they were good always, until their era finished, and his son became the king after him. And the words on the inside of the ring? Well, that's easy. You can probably guess. I'm sure you know them all. But they're 4 words, and they're these. All this will pass. And that's another old story, Keith, that's in many old books that go back many, many years. It's a Celtic story, the Jewish story, it's everybody's story. And perhaps we could tell some of our leaders this, and perhaps the world would be a slightly better place. But my voice they're not going to listen to. Anyway, Samantha, I do apologize. I don't often do that, but I'm going to come to you and we're going to do some poems. Then we're going to go to Baba and then we're going to go to Rona. Okay, Rona?
That was a lovely story. Thank you. Okay, so this poem is called The Ground. I wrote it on the day of the Queen's funeral. The ground hears no sound when you pound your heart's thunder. For the ground is abound with its own awe and wonder. The ground is the antithesis of the heavens above. When it looks up, it sees skies and clouds full of love. The ground feels the feet beats and the sweet treats of the forest deep, but when the heavens look down at the ground's suffering, it does weep for the burning and the raping and the ripping apart of this land of our ancestors, of our queens and her parts. But the ground rests in beauty and lovingly carries us all. After the fall of humanity, she will stand proud and tall. So take care, Earth's people. With feet grounded, look up. Heaven and earth hold it all. Wands, coins, swords, and cups. The elements of your being, of your seeing and agreeing, that all routes lead to one place, to the oneness of pure being.
Oh. I would like to remind you that we run a storytelling poetry festival and you're only 6 hours drive away. You're going to go and tell poems like that, you'd be very, very welcome. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you want to do another poem or do you want to come back and do one a bit later? Or
I can come back and do one a bit later. I'm
Right,
going to stay
okay.
here. I can do one a bit later if you want. I've got quite a few. I'm just not sure how the language situation is because not all my poems are child friendly.
Well, we're all adults here, but it does go out through Facebook.
Exactly.
And it is recorded and places like
Yeah.
that. And
So
on the
I'll,
whole, I would say that using expletives isn't probably appropriate when you go into people's houses where you haven't been invited. Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's
Okay.
what
So I'll bear that in mind. Cool. No problem. That's cool. All right.
Okay. That's all I've got to say about that. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah. I'll do another one a bit
Okay.
later then. It's fine. Yeah. I'll keep it clean.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay. We'll fit you in somewhere. Right, Baba.
All right. It's been a long time since we've done this. I actually missed it. But I wanted to share a story. And I usually say long and exaggerated, but a lot of times the sound gets cut. So I'll just put it this way. This story is so old. It is older than the beards of Mike, Norman Perrin, Keith, John Rowe, and Bob combined. It is an old story. In fact, some people say when this story was first told, there were only 3 days in the week. I don't know if that's true, but that's the story that I've been told. Now, what a lot of people don't know is that when they think of speed and land animals, they think of the cheetah, which is the fastest animal on land, and the leopard. But what they don't know is that a long time ago, the zebra was the fastest animal on land. Yes, I'm telling you, it was a zebra. It was as clear as black and white. But well, this is a story about how the zebra got its stripes. You see, the leopard did not care for animals that were not as fast as he. And he tried to be best friends with the zebra because the zebra was the fastest animal around. But the zebra's best Rafiki, his best friend, was the turtle. And the turtle is a very slow animal. So I will not be telling the story in the majority at the speed of the turtle. But the leopard would often chide the zebra. I don't know why you hang around with him. He's so slow. And if he's slow in body, he must be slow in mind. You should hang with me and be fast. And the zebra said, the turtle may be slow in body, but he's very sharp in mind. He's a very good friend, and his lack of speed, I don't mind. This only further incensed the leopard. But you cannot hang around and be seen associated with such a slow animal. If his body is slow, his mind is slow. He must be dumber than dumb. That's not the case at all. Plus, he's a very loyal and dear friend. I will not forsake the turtle because you do not like his lack of speed. The leopard kept talking about the slow turtle, disparaging to every ear that would listen. And he talked about this turtle terribly. He talked about the turtle being slow in mind and body, to the giraffe, to the monkeys, to all the animals that would listen. And Zebra did not like this. He was very upset. The turtle said, it is not a problem. You and I are good friends. We have many entertaining and informative conversations. I pay the leopard no mind. But the leopard was insidious. And the turtle, as patient and as wise as he was, soon had his fill. And so one day when the leopard was disparaging him, he said to the leopard, let's play a game. And the leopard said, game, game. Why would I play a game with someone like you? What kind of game could we possibly play? And the turtle said, binding game. The binding game? The binding game? And not wanting to admit that he did not know what the binding game was to such a slow animal that must be slow in body and mind. The leopard said, we will play the binding game. And the turtle said, if I win the binding game, you must stop talking about me and disparaging my name. If you win the binding game, I will go away never to be seen again. And the leopard thought, I can be rid of this animal and I can be best friends with the zebra, the fastest animal in all the land. Because back during those days, the zebra was jet black. I mean, he was blacker than black. He was so black, his shadow was yellow. And so the leopard said, how do we play this binding game? The turtle said, take the vines from the tree, tie them into a rope, throw them over the branches of a tall tree. And then I will bind you by the foot. And I will sway you back and forth and back and forth and back. And then, when you've had enough fun, you will do the same to me. And the leopard thought to himself, yeah, this is a slow-witted animal. Because when I tie him up, I'm going to have a meal. And so the leopard got the vine, threw them over a branch, and the turtle binded him by the foot, hoisted him up in the air, tied it off in a knot so that the leopard could not come down, and he swung him back and forth and back and forth and back. And the leopard, despite his best efforts, was actually enjoying this. But finally he said, as much fun as this is, it is now your turn to be bound. Deck me down. The turtle said one of the most powerful words in the world. No, 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 no. You are so smart. You are so intelligent. You do not need such a slow animal like me to unbind you. Surely you will unbind yourself. And with that, the turtle turned around and slowly walked away. Well, soon word got around that the leopard had been outwitted by the turtle who was hanging upside down tree. The leopard kept roaring, "Let me down, let me down, someone let me down." A day passed, another day passed, a third day passed. In fact, it was either a week or 7 days that passed, and the leopard was hungry. They could hear his stomach growling, and even though weak, was saying, "Let me down." I said, "No, if I let you down, you will eat me." "I will not." "No, no, 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 no. We hear your stomach. I am not letting you down." Not even the monkey would fall for his shine. There's a pun in there somewhere, but that's another story. The zebra turned to his best friend and said, "You know, I understand why you want to teach him a lesson, but enough is enough. Go untie him." He said, "I'm not going to untie him. I am a slow animal in body and wit. I do not have the intelligence to untie him." So he said, "He is so smart, he can unbind himself." Now let's put the zebra in a predicament. He was not the besties with leopard, but he was a kind, sensitive soul. His best friend had proven his point. The leopard was hanging upside down. His roars could be heard growing fainter and fainter. And as feared as he was in no shape to cause anyone harm. So the zebra walked over to where the leopard was tied up. And the zebra said, "People are afraid to untie you for fear you will eat them. Promise me you will not try to eat me, and I will unbind you." And the leopard said, "I promise I will not try to eat you. Unbind me." So very slow, the zebra let the leopard down and unbound him. And the leopard's stomach was growling so loud, people could hear it in a village over. And the leopard said, "True to my word, I will not try to eat you. I'm going to eat you." And the leopard pounced. The zebra was startled and turned and began to run. Remember, the zebra was the fastest animal on land. But the leopard, driven by hunger, leaped and started grabbing at the zebra. But despite his claws being sharp and firm, he could not get a grasp. And every time he leaped, he, he, he sheared off some of the zebra's black fur, black skin. And he kept trying and trying. And the zebra bucked and bucked and bucked and bucked. And the leopard kept trying and clawing and clawing and clawing. And finally, the zebra hit him with his rear hoof. And the leopard tumbled to the ground, exhausted and hungry. The zebra kept running. But you see, with each swipe of the leopard's claws, the zebra lost some of his speed, but he lost some of his beautiful black fur and the scars that grew in where the leopard had clawed him. And this is why the zebra has black and white fur, black and white skin to this day as a reminder to his children and his children's children and his children's children's children of his folly. But there's another lesson here. And that lesson I think bears to be repeated time and time again. Appearances can be deceiving. Because someone is slow in body does not mean they're slow in mind. Because someone is kind does not mean that they're weak. Because someone is different than you does not mean they do not deserve your respect. Oops, I stepped on a pin, the pin bent, and that's the way that story went. Asante.
So, Baba, the way you tell that story, then all the zebras would be black zebras with white stripes. Because
Yes,
there's an awful lot of stories I know from the southern region of South Africa. It's not South Africa, the state, it's the southern region. That's Tanzania and Zimbabwe. Because there's an awful lot of white zebras with black stripes. I'll have to tell you how they got them one day.
okay.
Rona,
Well, that
we're
just
gonna
goes
go
to
to
show you many stories can be told in
black and white. Absolutely, they can. Yes. And you know what's black and white and red all over, don't you?
a newspaper.
Exactly. Yes.
But I got a bad pun. I was trying not to. But the car enthusiast will get this one. Why is it called a chicken coop?
Why is it called a what?
Why is it called a chicken coop? Why do chickens live in a coop?
Chicken coop.
Why do chickens live in a coop?
Yeah. Or let me make it clear. Why do chicken coops only have two doors?
One to get in and one to get out.
No. Because if it had four doors, it wouldn't be a coupe. It would be a sedan.
Oh, God.
But I did warn you.
Yeah,
Right.
you did. You did.
Right. Okay. So while we're doing all this, and we're going to go to Rona next, but so here's a riddle for you if you haven't heard it before. We'll go with this. It was nice to see you, Karen, and you've come up with us. And Despina, that's okay. So what is a forest with no trees, a town with no people, a river with no water, and a farm with no crops or no stock, and a roads with no cars? You want to have a think? Right, well, Rona, we'll put you on next and we'll answer the riddle a bit later. Okay. And then we go Rona, then Norman afterwards. Norma, if you're gonna do one, Norman. Okay, so you're after Rona. Samantha, if you do a second poem after Norman. Okay.
This one's for you, Mike.
Go on.
Alexander was strong young man. Had a lot of good qualities, but he also had some pretty bad qualities as well. His mother pled with him not to antagonize the good Lord himself. And Alexander would say, but I don't believe in him, so why should I have to bother about not displeasing him? And his mother said, you're just a boy, you've got no idea. He lived in the forest, the Black Forest. And you know what you get in forest, don't you? Lots of trees. Well, this forest had more than its fair share of trees, but it also had bears. And there was one bear Alexander really, really desperately wanted to catch, because this bear had left him with a scar when he was just a boy. He left him with a scar on his face because he had just caught him before Alexander managed to run away. And he had been trying for the next 10 years to catch that bear, and he had never managed to catch him. And his mother said, well, maybe if you pray, and ask for help. I don't want you to kill the bear, but by even more so, I don't want the bear to kill you. I wish you would just forget about it. You don't understand, Mother. I can't. This was done by that bear. He needs to pay for it. Well, his mother's words just fell on deaf ears. He was polishing his gun, ready to go, slung it over his shoulders and heading out the door. His mum said, remember, Just say a prayer, keep you safe. I've told you, Mum, I don't believe in all that rubbish. I don't believe God. I don't believe there is a God. I've never believed there was a God. If there was a God, this would not have happened to me. And off he went. Well, you've guessed it. That bear was stalking Alexander. They were actually stalking each other. And as Alexander walked through the undergrowth, he heard a twig crack behind him. And he knew it was that bear. He knew its footfall. He knew the sound it made. He knew it was a big, heavy bear. That was not just a skinny little twig. That was a big, loud crack. It was his bear, and now he was going to get it. He circled in and out around the trees, listening for the bear behind him, and sure enough, he was always behind him. And at one point, they actually came face to face. And Alexander turned and fled because he was too close. He couldn't even get his gun up far enough to shoot him. So he had to turn and run and wait for a better opportunity. And as he ran, he tripped and fell. And when he fell, yes, you know, the bear was there, right on top of him, looking down and licking his lips. And Alexander, oh my God, oh God, please help me, please help me. And he heard the voice, God, is it? Oh, so you believe in me now? I've always believed in you, God. You know, I've always believed in you. My mother told me that you never believed in me. You never, ever believed in me, Alexander. And now you're in trouble. You expect me to help? Well, you're supposed to be the good one. You're supposed to be the one who helps everybody. No, you've got that one wrong. I help the Christians. And I'm a Christian. You are not a Christian, Alexander. You never have been. Oh God, please make me a Christian so that I can pray. No, Alexander, that's not going to happen. The bear's mouth is drooling and he's watching Alexander and he's listening to all this. Doesn't know what on earth's going on, but he's quite enjoying it. Please, dear God, please make me a Christian. I warned you, Alexander. No. Well, God, if you were half as good as you're supposed to be, then you would make the bear a Christian so that he won't eat me. Oh, I've never thought of that. A bear is a Christian? Oh, a bear is a Christian. I like that idea, Alexander. Yes, I shall make the bear a Christian. And he said a few words over the bear, and the bear suddenly knelt on the ground, still kneeling over Alexander. And Alexander thought, oh, until the bear said, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, Amen. Dear Lord, thank you for the food I am about to receive, which you have provided. I told you that at Woodbridge about 25 years ago, Mike.
I know you did. And do you remember the one I told you back? Do you remember? Right, so
That's
there's a
about
little chap. What time is it? Samantha, you just have to wait again a moment. Right. So there was a little chap. He's only 5'6", but he was partially Pakistani and partially English, and he wanted to join the Paras. So he went along to the Paras and said, I want to join the Paras. And they said, you're not tall enough. You've got to be over 5'6". We're not having you in the Paras. So I want to be in the Paras. He said, no, he's not. So he traveled all the way to Pakistan And he walked in there and he said, I want to be in the Paras, and said, we don't have a parachute regiment. We said, well, I'll create one for 5'6" people. So he created the first parachute regiment in the whole of Pakistan, and they're all 5'6". And they went up and they jumped out the first time. As he jumped out the first time, his parachute got stuck, and it was snorkeling down, it's called, so it wouldn't open up and everything else. And he went up into heaven and he said, Mohammed, please don't let me die on my first parachute jump. And a great big hand came and caught him, and he dropped him into the land, and he took a stood up, and he said, thank Christ for that. And a big foot went and flattened him completely.
Oh,
Then another bit now.
Right. I hope they're streaming that live somewhere. Dear God. Right. Norman, I hope you can beat that.
Well, it's funny. I had in mind a very short piece and then a story to tell. Bertrand Russell was a famed atheist, and so he died and he came to heaven, which was a wee bit of a surprise. And I first heard this story from a fellow 80 plus years from Scotland. He was a Spanish interpreter. He had a very interesting life, and he told this story in a fake Scots accent, which he could do because he was a Scots accent, but he just kind of emphasized a bit more. So I'll do my best to mangle it properly. And he said, so there's Bertrand Russell in front of the Almighty, says, oh Lord, please, 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 I didn't ken about you. And God just pressed the trapdoor down to the hot place and says, well, you kenning now. And Jock, the funny thing about Jock was that somebody made fun of him for telling a story in which he was a translator for the Shell Company in South America, as from English to Spanish, Spanish and English, and a few other languages. He's a good linguist. And he says, I must be very funny for a Scotsman to be speaking Spanish. You know, how to change the word. And he went on to say that Scots and Spanish have a lot in common, including rolled R's. And I truly wish I could reproduce what he then gave forth was a word exercise which rolled those R's into a tight little roll. It was an amazing linguistic, and my tongue hurts just thinking about it. But that's not the story I was out to tell. But I wanted to honor the memory of Jock. And so once upon a time and a long time ago, as I heard the story as best as I can from Duncan Williamson, there was a king and a queen with a young son who had just been born. But at that same time, to that kingdom there came a dragon, and the dragon was devastating the crops and people. And so the king went out with his soldiers and he killed the dragon. But the poisonous breath of the dragon killed the king. And so the queen was left alone with her wee bairn, with her wee child. And the queen raised the son by herself. And she, at the end of every day, she would tuck her little son into bed and tell her a story. After, of course, he begged for a story. Mama, tell me a story, tell me a story. And she would smile and tell him a tale. And he loved stories more than anything in the whole wide world. And by the way, I think it's those stories where the people got the wisdom they were looking for in the old books, because that wisdom had to come from somewhere to go into the books. And before the books were written, they were told. And so the queen knew a lot of stories, and every night when she told her son these stories, he would smile and say, thank you, Mama. And then one day, one evening, she said, Mama, tell me a story, tell me a story. No, I can't tell you a story tonight. Why not? Because we must speak of the time when you will be king of this land, because I will no longer be here. Oh, Mama, Why should I become king? Because I am the queen, she said. And when I am gone, you will be king. And we will talk of that tonight. Oh, Mom, do kings get to hear stories? Oh, kings get to hear many stories. Storytellers come from all around to tell the king stories. And it says, but so the time came. Oh, I'm sorry. And the young boy says, but Mom, tell me a story. And she smiled and she told him a tale. So the time came when the young man became king. And when he became king, he was leader of a great country. And he was a wise king, he was a good king, but he was an unhappy king. For you see, his mother was gone, and his mother no longer told him stories. And he grew sadder and sadder, and until one day he put out a proclamation that anybody who could tell stories like his mother could tell long ago would receive a chest of gold. No, then the storytellers came thick and fast, where a chest of gold didn't come by every day. And so they were all lined up and telling the king stories. But at the end of each tale, he said that was a good story. He would reward them with a gift. He said, but not like my mother used to tell. And so the king, as I said, grew sadder and sadder until one day the old gardener saw the king sitting silent upon his throne, and he thought to himself, the king is sad because he cannot hear stories like his mother used to tell. My grandmother used to tell me a tale or two, and so perhaps one of those will make the king happy. And so he went over to the king. He said, I would like to tell you a story. Perhaps one of my granny's stories would make you feel better. And the king says, tell me the story. I'll be glad to hear you. And now he thought, there's a nice long story my granny used to tell. And that was my favorite and the best story that I know. So he went on with his story and had everything in it. It had dragons and magicians and princesses and journeys and magic horses and even the odd magic penguin. There's all kinds of creatures. And the old gardener was droning on and on and on and on, when suddenly his story was interrupted by the sound of snoring. And there was the king sitting on his throne, his head off in that kind of awkward angle that makes you think he's going to have a sore neck when he wakes up. And so the old gardener stopped his story. Oh no, my story, it bored the king to death. And when he wakes up, his neck is going to hurt like nothing else. And so he tippy-toed away very, very quietly. And then he went and hid. And he hid underneath his bed, thinking they're going to come looking for me. They're going to come looking for me. And sure enough, there the soldiers were shouting back and forth throughout the palace and in the garden, and said, find the gardener, get the gardener. The king wants the gardener. And they found him, of course. There they saw the bed shivering and shaking, and the guard looked underneath the bed, and there was a poor, terrified gardener. He said, come on, come on. The king wants you. The king wishes to see you. And so the gardener came out, and he came to the palace, the throne room, and he was fearing for his life, but he saw the king sitting on his throne. His neck didn't look sore, but on his face there was a smile, and he looked happier than he had for a long, long time. And he said, and the king says, my friend, why did you run away? Why did you not stay for your reward? Reward? Why should I receive a reward? Said the gardener. The story I told you, it was so long, it was boring, and it put you to sleep. And yes, said the king. And that exactly is what my mother used to do. She would tell me stories until I fell asleep. And so you in all the land are the only person who can tell stories like my mother used to tell. And so I want you to become my chief storyteller. I'll be glad to do that, said the old gardener. But can I still work in the garden? Of course, said the king. Everyone has a true love, and I know gardening is yours. But in the evening, when I am done and you are done, you shall come and tell me stories. And that's what the old gardener did. He would sit beside the king in his bed and tell him stories until he fell asleep, for that is the way his mother used to tell him stories. And that story is much, as I said, learned from Duncan. I apologize that I don't have his exact words, but that is the way I tell it. Thank you.
I'll tell you what, Norman, Duncan's told me that story, and that's close enough. You don't have to apologize. It's Duncan would have said that's your version now. So all you have to do is to make sure you pass it to somebody else. So
Oh, thank you, Mike, because I heard the story from him. It was such a long time ago that I just remember its essence of the bare bones. And if there's a print version of it somewhere, I would love to pick it up again.
I'm sure it's in a book somewhere. I've got a complete list of signed copies, and James is coming down to our festival here. Duncan's oldest son. He's 60
Oh, that's
years old
wonderful.
now.
Yes.
So he's coming down himself. It's the first time. I can't remember Jimmy being out of Scotland before, I must admit. So I'm really pleased. And Despina, I know, is going to absolutely love him. He's a wonderful person. And Jimmy's going to love you, Despina. And Duna, I know you've got a cold, so don't get too close to the screen and give us a cold, okay? Whatever you do, okay? Right, so we're going to finish off with a second poem from Samantha, because you did promise us another poem. And Karen, I am talking to you on the chat things, and you have to send me an email. Something's going wrong here. But okay, Samantha, please.
Okay, so this poem's to Melusine. Enchanting, elusive, serpentine divine, enslaver of fathers, fated mothers entwine, promises broken and secrets exposed, bathing in waters in your home unclothed. The bounty of Saturn embodied with wealth. And what does he show you in thanks? He shows stealth. He comes when he fancies, hides outside your insides. He creeps in the shadows, cries belie his spying eyes. Love shattered into 1,000 shards. The light refracted back to the gods and the bards. Retreat to the well, to the rivers and streams. Return to the lakes and the ocean of dreams. The cries of your offspring echo deep in your soul, returning at dusk, their well-being to know. You wonder in sorrow, will their fate follow yours, as your mothers before you, and back eons before? You must trust the waters, the deep currents of change. The future is written on the crest of a wave. This writing's a language you know in your heart. It's the kiss of the Holy One and the poisonous dart.
That's lovely. Absolutely lovely. So we're here in 2 weeks' time, Samantha. We always start at 6 o'clock UK time. We do it every other, you know, miss one, do one, miss one, do one, all the way through the winter. And you'd be very welcome to come. I love some poetry. It is a story round, but it's through the world storytelling. But our festival is a festival of the spoken word. And yesterday I was sat alongside the River Severn listening to the country voices against the town voices. There's not a competition. There is sort of an equalism of everything else. So having someone do their own poets and doing poems from other people are very, very welcome. So you'd be very welcome to come back again. Right, so I think everybody's done something who wants to do something tonight, and it's been very welcome. We've been here an hour or so. We can go round again, or we can call it. I think we'll just call it for tonight. In 2 weeks' time, we have and that will be a week before the festival. So Despina may be here, but she's going to be there with all her sort of suitcases and all that ready to be packed to fly out and everything else. Okay, and I don't know if you're coming down, Mona. Are you coming down to Gary this year?
I'm hoping to. I've just got back from Italy yesterday after being away for 10 weeks. So when I'm
Oh, it's hard work, but
it's
someone's
awful,
got to
somebody's
do it.
got to
I
do it.
know.
It's hellish.
I know.
I
I
do.
said, you're going to get. You've had a bit of shock, haven't you? You had to get your vest out with the weather we've had here.
Yeah, I'm hopefully going to be there. It would be wonderful if I can get there.
Absolutely, love to see you about. Come, make sure you come and find me. Right. Well, I think we'll call it for tonight. So I'll see you in a fortnight, 6 o'clock,
Thank
and we're going
you.
to we're advertising out through the Society for Storytelling and the World Storytelling Cafe. So hopefully we're going to build the numbers up as we go. It's been a lovely hour, and I've really enjoyed it. And thank you for coming. I can't do this, and if people like you come along because they want to tell stories, and I'm always happy to listen. So thank you very much for being here, and I'll see you, some of you in person in the near future, and some of you online all through the winter. Okay.
And
Yeah.
thanks for hosting, Mike. I really think you.
Not a
Take
problem
care.
at all.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Before everybody goes,
Please
Karen,
continue.
can you just stay on for a second, mate? Right. Okay, fellas.
Okay,
Right, good
take
folks.
care.
I'll see you.
See you, Baba.
guys.
See you, Norman.
Bye.
Take
See
care.
you, Keith.
Norm, let's touch base later.
Okay, mate.
All right,
Absolutely.
I'm out.
Yeah. I'm not receiving any emails from you, Karen. I've just checked again.
Oh, that is weird, isn't it?
Oh,
Wow.
no, it happens to me. And the trouble is, I don't know it's happening, if you know what I mean. If that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
So
Could be my
I've
email.
just-
who knows?
I've just gone on to I've looked in the spam box, and there's nothing there
Ah,
either. So
because
what's
I've sent you a couple of 3 throughout the last 2 months because I was wondering whether Matt Wenlock was on, of course, and
yeah, no. So what's your email address?
well, it's Karen at
Karen at
Paul Walker Music. Or
Paul
one word.
Walker.
Paul Walker Music, yeah. .co.uk.
Music. .co.uk. So Karen at paulwalkermusic.co.uk.
Yeah.
Right. I'm putting a testing over.
Yeah.
Let's see if you pick it up, and if you do, answer me back. But it's not. It's coming up with a red line. There's an error in the address. It says, "Hang on." Try again. Right, gotcha. Right, let's see what happens. Right, so I'm sending one to you. If you see it, just answer me back so I know we can talk to each other.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so you've been busy. What have
No.
you been up to?
Not yet here, but yeah. Oh, what have I been up to? I tell you, crazy summer, crazy autumn.